Will you please state your name?
Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd.
And what is your address?
I live in Yucca Valley, California.
And how old are you, Amber?
I am 36. I just celebrated.
Okay. And do you have a daughter?
Okay.
I do. She also celebrated her birthday recently. She's 1.
Okay. And what is your profession?
I am an actor, mostly.
Okay. Now, why are you here?
I am here because my ex-husband is suing me for an op-ed I wrote.
And how do you feel about that?
I struggle to have the words. I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is.
Yeah, it probably
this
sucks.
is horrible for me to sit here.
Imagine how he feels.
Weeks and relive everything. Hear people that I knew, some well, some not. My ex-husband, with whom I shared a life. Speak about our lives in the way that we have. This has been this is the most painful and difficult thing I've ever gone through, for sure.
I would probably assume that's true.
There was a trial in the UK in July of 2020 where Mr. Depp had sued the Sun newspaper and Dan Wooten. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what was your level of participation in that lawsuit, in that trial?
Well, I was not party to that lawsuit. I was a witness, I suppose the primary witness, since it dealt with the truth of the relationship that I shared with Johnny.
And what, if any, role did you have to play with respect to, for example, witness statements and testifying?
Objection, compound.
I said, for example.
Overruled.
Oh.
I had to write, I think I gave 7 witness statements under oath testimony.
I'm sure that matters.
I sat on the stand for 4 days under mostly cross-examination. And up until this point, it was the hardest thing I had ever had to do.
Thank you, Amber. I'm going to take you back, and if you can just tell the jury a little bit about your background. Tell us where you grew up.
Oh, so we're trying to make people feel sorry
from
for
Austin,
her.
Texas, a small town outside of Austin that you probably haven't heard of. No one has. It's called Maynard. And I was raised by my mother and my father, and I grew up with a little sister, although I have a big sister as well.
And your little sister's name is?
Her name is Whit Hurd.
And how much of an age difference is there between the two of you?
Whitney and I are about 1 year, I think we're 16
Thank God
years
we're
apart.
getting this information.
So,
this is exactly what I was wondering about.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father broke horses and did construction. He painted houses. And
What does this have to do with anything?
Hunted and fished, but that was for fun.
And what did your mom do?
She worked for the state of Texas.
Let me just, since you talked about the breaking horses, can you just tell the jury what your role is in assisting your dad on that and what is involved in breaking horses?
Objection, leading.
Can you just tell me about?
Overruled. Good.
You just got to stay on, basically. I would help him. I was more of a crash test dummy. You know, when you train a horse, it's a wild animal. It doesn't necessarily like to be ridden. And
that's crazy.
There are people out there.
I can't believe that.
Who are crazy enough.
That's crazy. Wow.
Like my dad to pick that as a profession, I guess. And
yep,
he was really good with horses, and I was the son he never had, so it was my job to stay on.
And what, if anything, did you learn from your father about how to react to the horses?
Well, with training horses, I guess the key things are to not show fear,
Oh, I see where we're going with
not
this.
get intimidated, not
Oh,
show fear,
Jesus.
be tough and calm.
Oh, God.
Tell the jury a little bit about
No.
your educational background during those growing up years and your work experience.
I worked any job that I could from the time I was really young. I wanted to get out of Texas and do something with my life and see things and do things.
Well, Manor
so
sucks, so I
was in
don't blame her on
school
that one.
and really pushed myself to. I just always pushed myself to be able to accelerate the process. I wanted to, get out of school as fast as I could, and I wanted to do more things with my life than stay in Texas.
Thank you so
So what
much.
types of things, so where did you go to school?
Thank you.
When you were younger?
I was a scholarship kid at a Catholic school growing up, several different Catholic schools, but they were always in the other, on the other side of town, in the wealthier part of town, and I grew up quite working class, and thankfully with as long as I maintained an A average, I enjoyed the benefit of a scholarship, and I did that until I realized that I could take my GED and SATs early, and I did that and placed out of school and effectively left school at 16 years old, I believe.
And what did you do for work during those younger years?
I took any job that I could. I worked at my
Oh, my
father's
God.
construction company, sometimes, just administrative stuff. I mean, it was a small company.
Who cares?
But I answered phones, and I worked at a modeling agency that was also, offered photography classes, makeup classes, hair and makeup classes for people that were pursuing a career in entertainment. And I started taking classes that I paid for by working there, effectively as a trade. And I eventually worked there long enough to be able to pay for my headshots, which are the pictures that you use in the industry to promote yourself, in whatever, acting, modeling, or both.
Thank you.
What, if
Thank
any,
you.
charitable work did you do when you were still young?
Oh, my God.
It started off as a requirement for the school I went to.
Oh,
and
my
then
God.
I liked it so much, I think, because it meant I wasn't at home, and that was important to me, is just to not spend
Jesus.
time at home.
This is nuts,
and
man.
I really loved meeting people, so I worked at the soup kitchen every morning before school, during the school year, for about 4 years. I didn't go on weekends, but on weekends I would do various things. Worked at children's museums, typically, because they would work with younger volunteers.
That's nice.
And mostly soup kitchens and things involving children. I worked at the with deaf kids for a while, and I love it.
And when you worked with deaf kids, what, if anything, did you do to learn to be able to work with them?
Objection leading and 404.
Yeah, it's like, what is this?
Overruled.
Like, why? This is crazy.
Well, I taught myself how to sign basic sign language, and then I pursued it. I audited a course at the community college, which I ended up going to get out of high school early later on. But I would audit classes. The teachers never wanted to kick the random 12-year-old out of their class, I suppose. So I remarkably was able to audit, I think, the majority of 2 semesters, and that's also helped me
Okay.
learn.
So
That's
how
nice,
did you
I
end
guess.
up in Los Angeles?
I did a small job in Texas where I played a part in a movie, and the actor in the movie that I was playing opposite had an agent visiting him from LA, and I met her on set, and she said that she had heard about me from another bit part I did. You know, I was
Okay.
taking jobs in Austin for
Okay.
really anything, to be an extra, to apply I did makeup once.
That's crazy.
You know, nothing, no job was too small or, you know, for me. So I put myself out there, and she had heard about me, and she said, I have heard about you in this town, and I'd love to meet you in LA if you're ever out in LA. And I was like, when can I come? And she made an appointment with me for the following
Oh
week.
my
and I
God.
used
Where do we get
all
to the
but
shitting on the bed part?
$180 or something to get out there, and that's
Yeah, where's
I landed.
that?
I didn't know anyone. I was 17, and I've effectively been there ever since, I suppose.
So when you arrived in Hollywood, please tell the jury what you did to get moving there, get going.
Okay.
I went to every audition, every casting, every meeting, every appointment that I could. I put myself out there. I didn't have a car because those were expensive. So I took the bus around LA. It was before smartphones.
That's great.
I had
Wow.
a Thomas guide in my bag and a change of tank tops. Not that it mattered, but I went to about 10 auditions sometimes a day, and would change clothes if I needed to in the back of, you know, the bus I was taking. And I just hustled from one audition to the other.
Okay.
And I got a bit part on one thing, and then I got a bit part on another thing. And then eventually my roles kind of became more important or bigger. And it's been a slow progression, I guess, since then, you know, of doing either tiny bit parts in bigger movies or doing, you know, larger roles in movies that no one would see. And I guess, you know, it still is kind of like that.
So I'm going to ask you to go from 2002 to 2009. If you could just describe for the jury a little bit what types of parts you had. I think they've indicated they didn't. You have not been well known here in this courtroom compared to Mr. Depp. So perhaps just take them through a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I did small roles.
Oh
in big
my
films,
God.
like, you know, Zombieland and Pineapple Express and
With James Franco?
movies that were well known.
Ah, how
my first one was
interesting.
Friday Night Lights. But
What a
again, I had
coincidence.
small roles in those bigger films, and then I would do larger roles in kind of
That's
smaller
crazy.
films. Like I did a project where I was the lead in a John Carpenter film, and he came out of retirement to do that. And that's kind of how it was in terms of my career for those that first initial 10 years or so. It was just going from slightly bigger role to slightly bigger role.
She's talking about
and
before then.
just working my butt off.
So I'm going to take you up to 2008. Did there come a time that you auditioned for The Rum Diary?
Yes,
Okay.
I auditioned for that in about 2008, I believe.
All right.
Please describe for the jury your experience in auditioning for The Rum Diary.
Well, I auditioned a few times, which is common in my work. You know, you get a call back, as they say, and I think I had at least one, maybe two callbacks with the director, and then I got a call saying that Johnny, who at the time was, I think I knew that he was producing it as well, was doing a project that was something very personal to him. He was reprising his role as his late friend, Hunter S. Thompson, and it was a very important project to him, and that he wanted to meet me in person. I thought I would be going for maybe an audition, but it was just a meeting. I went to his office and met with him for a few hours.
All
And what
right.
did you talk about during those few hours?
Seems fair. Okay.
We talked about books and music, poetry. We liked a lot of the same stuff, you know, obscure writers and, you know, interesting books and pieces of poetry that I hadn't heard anybody else reference or know or like. And he was very well read and charismatic, and you know, I think I left the office with a few books that he gave me, and we spent the whole time just talking about things that we care about. And
That seems nice. Okay.
I was so surprised that somebody, you know, I knew who he was. I wasn't familiar, you know, I wasn't a fan of his work. I wasn't familiar with him, but I knew who he was. You know, he's one of the most famous people in the world. So it was already a weird thing to go and get called into his office. And, you know, I'm a no-name actor. I was 22, I think, and I thought it was unusual. It was weird because he was twice my age, and he's this world-famous actor, and here we are getting along about obscure books and weird, you know, old blues, and we just...
Okay.
I thought it was remarkable. You know, I thought it was unusual and remarkable.
Okay.
I left there just feeling like, wow.
So he was nice to
Did
you.
there come a time that you learned that you were going to be cast for the role in The Rum Diary?
Yes, a few days
so he was a
later,
really
my
nice guy.
agent
Again.
said that Johnny's going to call you. We gave him your phone number. I was like, oh, okay. And shortly after, my phone rings, I pick it up, and I hear, you know, this like deep voice on the other line, and he said, "You got you're it, kid. You're the dream. Hunter wrote this part, and you're the dream. You're it, kid." I was like,
And
amazed.
please describe for the jury what that means. What was the Rum Diary and this Hunter Thompson? What was the concept here, and what role were you playing?
Well, it was my understanding that he was bringing to life his late friend. And what he told me was that this character is supposed to be the dream woman, like the dream, American dream. And so I knew what he meant. He indicated to me when he told me I got the role that I was that, you know, that I was the dream kid. That's what he said.
So did there come a time that you started filming The Rum Diary?
Okay.
Yes, I'm not quite sure how much.
Okay.
I think we started filming in
Turned into a
maybe
nightmare,
March of
yeah.
2009.
And where did you film The Rum Diary?
We shot
Yeah.
it in Puerto Rico.
And describe, if you can, the events of the filming and your interactions with Mr. Depp during that time.
It was a bit surreal, you know, filming in a place like Puerto Rico. It was beautiful. It takes place in the 50s, so everything really looked beautiful. You know, cars and clothing, the music. It was
Yeah, it's a nice
It was
place.
a very colorful shoot in general. I couldn't have asked for, you know, a better scenario. I was on film. I mean, I was on set reading my books, and occasionally Johnny would talk to me, and then he started to be really kind to me, like more open with me. When we'd have hot days filming, you know, there'd be this big SUV pull up, and a security guard would kind of usher me into this car, and it would have the AC blasting, and I'd be sitting in the back of the SUV just thinking what a strange experience the whole thing was. And, you know, we didn't really have a whole lot of interaction.
So basically
on
he was
set
really nice to her.
until
That's where we're at.
until
He's a
we
really nice guy.
did a scene that involved kissing. We had a kissing scene, and
Isn't that
it
interesting?
didn't feel like a normal. It didn't feel like a normal scene anymore. It felt more real. There are certain things that you do in the job to be professional, like when you have to do that sort of scene, and you don't like you don't use your tongue if you can avoid it. There's certain things that you do to just maintain a certain line, and it just felt like those lines were blurred. I mean, he grabbed my face and pulled me into him and really kissed me.
My
But we
man.
were filming a scene.
Did he use his tongue?
Yes.
Okay. Did you celebrate your birthday while you were in
Jesus.
Puerto Rico?
I did. I celebrated, I think, maybe my 23rd birthday.
Oh my
there.
God.
And what, if anything, did Mr. Depp do for your birthday?
Well, we were already kind of talking about books and poetry and things like that. He gave me a few really beautiful poetry books. And he gave me a bicycle, like a vintage bicycle, because at the time I was riding around on a bike, and I had a lot of time off since I was a smaller role in
That's
the
a
movie.
nice look.
And yeah, I think that was it.
Okay.
That's a thoughtful gift.
Now,
Like,
did there come a time
Alpha, thanks for 5 subs.
that you ended up visiting him in his trailer?
Yes, I think there was we would hang out if, after.
fat old man, by the way. Yeah,
in
true.
between scenes or in between setups, we often were, talking about things and would continue the conversation into the trailer, often with the director. Bruce Robinson was his name. And then at one point, we talk about wine. It's another thing that Johnny and I shared in common, a love for wine, red wine.
They're trying to paint a power dynamic?
And
Yeah,
we
obviously.
were talking about a kind of wine that I enjoyed, and I was, going on about how great this bargain wine was. And I didn't understand, how much more sophisticated Johnny's taste in wine was. So I was going on about the virtues of Malbec or something, and I brought him a bottle of this wine, and I set it down, and at some point I'm going back to
megapint?
get back
Yeah.
to set, and he kind of kicked his foot up in the air and basically kind of lifted the back of my bathrobe up, and
Can I just stop you there? Why were you wearing a
His
bathrobe?
eyebrows.
because I was doing
He's
a
like, wait,
scene.
what the fuck?
It was a period film, so it took place in the 50s.
Yeah.
And so I had all of this old undergarments that are for that time era on. And the scene involved me changing. So I had all the costume on.
Okay.
And he kind of picked up the back of my robe with his boot. And I kind of turned around and laughed, giggled, I didn't know what to make of it at the time. And I just kind of giggled and batted it away playfully. And he kind of playfully kind of pushed me down on this bed sofa that was in his trailer, just playful. And flirtatious, and he said, yum. And he kind of lifted up his eyebrows like that. And I just giggled, laughed it off, kind of batted him away, and, moved on, went back to set.
Yeah.
And were you in a relationship at that time?
I was.
Okay. And was Mr. Depp in a relationship at that time?
That was my understanding, yeah.
Okay. And did anything else of significance happen
course.
during that time period while you were filming with Mr. Depp, other than what you've told us?
We just had this, it was a friendship, a flirtatious thing. I felt chemistry. I felt this other thing that went beyond the pale of my job, for sure. Johnny clearly felt that way about me, had indicated to me that that's how he felt in many different ways. But at the same time, we were both in relationships, and it is a job, and, it was intimidating. And I just remember feeling kind of intimidated and a little nervous about that. And I also was in a relationship, so we went our separate ways, and I didn't hear from him for a long time.
Okay.
And that's so. Approximately how long were you filming?
Her cam's frozen? Yeah, I don't know why that happened.
Diary?
A few months is my best
All right.
guess.
And when you left Puerto Rico,
Camera
and
died from
filming,
lies. Yeah.
When is the next time that you had any contact from Mr. Depp? And contact could include anything, communications.
Yeah, it
written
could be anything.
communications,
Okay.
As well as telephone or otherwise.
We had no contact until Johnny called me on the phone one day and I was driving, and he invited me over to his home in California.
OTK
Beverly Hills.
production.
And I mean, it was out of the blue. I didn't even have his phone number, so it was quite unexpected. He called me a second time, but
There we
I don't think we actually connected, or we didn't stay on the phone because we didn't really speak. But the first time was the only time I actually spoke to him, and he invited me over to his house under kind of he said that, you know, we could get Bruce, who was the director, to come over, something about the movie, but it was clearly not about the movie, if you know what I mean. It was, so I said, I said, my friends are in town, and I'm busy with that, and kind of hung up, feeling really startled, you know, that didn't know what else to do.
What, if any, gifts did Mr. Depp send you during that time period after you filmed The Rum Diary?
He sent me several gifts. He sent me a beautiful dress, one that I wore in the movie, with a beautiful handwritten note, said "Happy Wrapping," and
Damn.
made a reference to the dress being wrapping paper. He sent me a few gorgeous, expensive, what I can only assume are expensive, collectible books, items. And then when I was away filming on a different, a different job, he he did send me some guitars. I know one delivery. I was informed about one delivery, and my partner at the time,
oh my God,
intercepted the attempt to deliver and called me immediately and said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Send it back." And she did, and she indicated that there was, at the time, there was another one that had already previously attempted delivery, and it was also rejected. I sent it back because I wasn't there, and I wouldn't have accepted it anyway.
Okay. Did there come a time
makes sense.
that
Yeah,
you
she wasn't
ended
there.
up having to go on a press tour for The Rum Diary?
I got a call for the
he
Rum
seems
Diary
like a
press
nice
tour
guy.
in the fall of 2011.
So that's close to two and a half years after you filmed?
I'm an actress, not a mathematician for a reason. Roughly, yes.
Okay. And could you please describe for the jury what a press tour is? Just explain it to them.
When you
Okay.
take a movie once it's completed, and if it doesn't have distribution, you, as part of the promotion of that movie, you go to these various places, normally cities like London or New York, and you do press events in those cities to kind of promote the film, and you go to place talking about the film.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I know about
And
that.
so you were then called to participate in the press tour for The Rum Diary?
Yes, I had I had just finished going through the process of separation with my former partner, and I was moving and
Was that Tasha girl?
going through that.
Which
and I
one
got
was
a phone
that? I
call
forgot.
saying, "Remember that movie you did in Puerto Rico? Well, they want you for the press tour." And
Yeah, I forgot which one that was.
said, "Well, perfect timing." And we did that, I think late October 2011.
Okay.
Okay. So describe for the jury your interactions with Mr. Depp during the press tour.
The one she hit? That's not very
on
specific.
The first stop, the beginning of the tour was Los Angeles, where we both lived, and we did a press day, normal press day, and then at the end of it, I was invited by Johnny to come up to his room to have a drink with him and the director of the film. And I went up to the room to see both him and Bruce, but as soon as I got there, Johnny said Bruce wasn't going to make it. So I stayed. Johnny and I started talking.
Yeah.
He asked me about my relationship. I said, "Well, you know, I'm going through
Jesus.
it. I'm going through the separation right now, and it's been, you know, rough couple of months, but that's normal." And he said, "Well, that's
this trick in the book.
same with
Yeah.
me. You know, it's been." I can't remember exactly how long he said it had been, but that he had split from the mother of his kids, and said that he understood.
All right, and then what happened next?
Then we drank red wine and continued to talk, and the talking became us, reconnect. It was like reconnection was almost instant. It was just chemistry. It's hard to
mega
explain.
fight,
that,
yeah.
We sat on the couch and we talked, and
Then I ruined his life. Yep.
it felt like there was. It felt like there was an electricity to the room, and it's how I felt when I was alone with him anyway. And it was instant again. I was like, whoa. So on the couch, we talked, finished some wine, and then I got up and left. And as I went to leave, he grabbed both sides of my face, similar to what he did in Puerto Rico when we were filming that scene. And he kissed me, and I kissed him back.
All right.
And what happened next with respect to any relationship with Mr. Depp?
Okay.
Well, then we fell in love. We went on this press
Oh,
tour.
look how nice that is.
And
wow.
we went. It was.
It just
it
didn't
was
stay
a
that way.
beautiful and strange time. We were flying from one, not together, but going from one city to the next, Europe, New York, Los Angeles, as I said, and we're just traveling around talking about this movie that we did together, that we participated in together, and we were falling in love. I mean, it was just, at the first dinner in London, he sat me next to me. He produced the film and was a part of controlling the film and was responsible for different things than I was as an actor having a small part in it. And we went on this press tour, and I think in London he had me sat next to him at a dinner, and then we ended up spending the night together in my hotel room. And for the rest of the press tour, it was on. I'll put it that way.
All right. And how long
right.
approximately did the press tour go?
Yep.
I don't know exactly how long it lasted. I think, there were press engagements in this city for a few days, and then another city for a few days.
Mistakes were made, yeah.
And there was a break, and then there was another press opportunity, I believe. So it was kind of spread out over maybe a month, if I'm guessing.
So when you returned to Los Angeles, what, if anything, took place with any relationship with Mr. Depp?
Well, once we were back from the press tour, we had this, whirlwind romance kind of just in these beautiful places all over, and we're falling in love and
Also, I know
not
how
able
to put it
to
for
really
I'm
show
lazy.
it because
Very lazy.
he wasn't, that the world didn't know about this split between he and his former partner. And of course, as a woman, I was like, is that troubling? And I'd ask him, no,
Weren't
he
you
swore
in a
to me that they
relationship
hadn't
too?
even shared a bed for a year, and that they were protecting the kids and not publicizing it. So, or not making it known to the press.
Yeah,
And
what
so
about-
we kind of had to be a little bit under the radar.
As a
Not a
woman-
little bit. We had to be really under the radar.
Okay.
Because, as Johnny pointed out, that the world would blame me and call me a homewrecker, even though I had nothing to do with it. So we were secretly dating, and then, it was beautiful.
That's a nice guy.
It was,
Yeah. It's true. He was smart. Smart.
Felt
He was right.
like this man knew me and saw me in a way that no one else had. I felt he understood me. I felt he understood where I came from. I felt that when I was around
And
Johnny,
then I
I felt
shit
like
in
the
his
most
bed.
beautiful person in the whole world. It made me feel seen, made me feel like $1 million. And that kind of feeling where, he just lavish gifts and lavish expressions of love, and how he had never met a woman like me. I mean, I remember he took the foil off of this bottle and put it on my ring finger. And I had only been with him like days, you know, or maybe it was weeks at the time.
Jesus
Yeah, it was probably about
Christ.
a few weeks, but it just felt very intense. But
God
we
damn.
weren't doing normal life stuff. We weren't like
Yeah.
stuck in traffic with each other. We weren't going to the grocery store and doing life. We were like hiding in these places around the world. He has so many homes, and so we'd be in one of those homes or my
I feel
home
like just
at the
watching
time,
this,
or
Johnny seems pretty cool.
it would be like a bubble, like a
Yeah, like
we were in this little bubble of secrecy. and it
I'm
felt like
confused
a
here.
warm glow, as we would say. Just music and the kind of books that we both loved and poetry that we both knew by heart, and it was it felt like an
It's like a legend.
it felt
Yeah,
like
she was
a
like hyping
dream.
him up the whole time.
It felt like absolute magic.
So while you're dating, I take it you're dating at this point, right?
Yeah,
While
sorry,
you're
I didn't make that
while you're
clear, yeah.
falling in love, you're also dating, right? Okay.
Yes.
Did there come a time early on that
face,
you
sure.
ended up going to his Bahamas island?
That was a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
fucked up
shortly
there.
after, you know, I think started dating October of 2011, and you know, as I mentioned, this bubble, you know, where he'd come over to my house and not leave for like 3 or 4 days, you know, just smoking cigarettes and playing music and reading poetry to me or painting me, or, you know, just talking. And then he would
Man, this guy sounds awful.
disappear. And there'd be just no way to get a hold of him, no way to contact him. At first, I didn't really think anything about it, but he disappeared at one point, and then came back and said he was dealing with some health issue, and would I join him in the Bahamas? And
Okay.
I think that's when I learned he had an island, and I was on a trip with a friend of mine in Spain.
Okay.
And it was for the holidays, and I kind of rerouted my trip so I could come and land in LA landing in Miami instead of LA, so I could go and meet him on the island. And he had Keenan come and meet me on that
The
trip.
guy's got an
in
island, like,
Miami,
goddamn.
get off one plane, get onto another, and go and join him on his private island. And
No, it wasn't Crypto
I
Land.
noticed he was drinking Beck's and tea, like lots of tea,
Oh,
like lots of tea.
incredible.
And I didn't foolishly think anything of it.
It's tremendous.
I just, you know, thought the man really, seriously, I missed it before, but really, really loves tea. And we had this beautiful, I don't know, less than a week probably, trip in the Bahamas, a private island, beautiful sandy beaches.
That's
It's a
nice.
scene that you just don't.
Tukey Island.
I had never experienced anything like that. It was a beautiful place, a beautiful time, and
Okay.
I fell head over heels in love with this man.
So after the Bahamas, I assume you came back, and are we talking now early 2012?
I mean,
Yes, that's correct.
he seems
Okay.
like a really nice
So
guy.
What were you doing work-wise while you were dating him in this early stage?
What I always do, I would
yeah.
be taking job to job to job, going from one movie to the next. Mostly not filming in LA. So weirdly, you live in LA to go shoot on location in other places. So when I was in town, we would go back to this bubble, like insular bubble with
Yeah.
beautiful, blaringly loud music and no one else.
He drank
and
tea,
nothing
the
else.
monster?
And
Yeah.
then, you know, I'd go off to work. And so would he. Well, eventually, yeah, he left to shoot Lone Ranger, I believe.
Okay. Now, we've heard a little bit about Lone Ranger, and that's about mid-2012, is that right? When he
Okay.
was shooting that?
That sounds right, mid-2012, yeah.
Mega
And
pint,
were you
yeah,
shooting
mega
anything
pint of
at that
tea.
time?
I was shooting,
Machete Kills?
I believe I was shooting Machete Kills in Austin. I had a small part in a Robert Rodriguez film.
Oh yeah,
shot
I saw
in
that. That was a
Austin.
good movie.
But you know,
Yeah.
I think Johnny was shooting and then having some time off, and there was just a lot of travel, a lot of movement. So,
And so what, if any, visiting did you do with Johnny while he was on his set for Lone Ranger, and where was he?
well, he was filming all over the Southwest, and at some point I came to visit him,
Okay.
and on one of his locations, and I would stay in the house because I couldn't really, you know, occasionally I would leave with his security guards, but I didn't really have anything to do but visit him for a few days. So I'd cook and kind of stay at home and paint or whatever and wait for him to come home and have dinner ready. And we would have these little bubbles, but kind of scattered throughout
All right.
the Southwest and as he was filming. And at the time, Johnny had, you know, when I first arrived at one of these locations, it was the first time that Johnny told me that he had had a health issue.
Oh, shit.
Something with his liver, and that he wasn't. That's why he was not drinking. He was drinking a lot of tea, like a lot of tea.
Okay. And so we've heard a little testimony about boots. What, if anything, did you do to help
How much?
Johnny with his boots?
Like, I'm actually curious. Like,
Well,
how
I
much
mean-
is this? Like a mega pint? How many mega pints is this?
I suppose that I took off his boots, and it made an impression on him, and I
lot
was
of
happy
tea.
to. You know, anything I can do to show love. Certainly, how I felt about him. But if he wanted to take off his own boots, he certainly could.
Did you buy Mr. Depp any knives during that time period?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
What, if anything, did you do with respect to knives during the time period you were with him in the Lone Ranger?
Objection leading.
What, if anything?
Overruled.
What if anything?
Johnny had a thing for turquoise, and that.
What if
eventually,
anything?
You know, being in the Southwest, it can happen really quickly. I also too really love turquoise, and he has he loved knives. He loves a lot of things. When Johnny loves things, he does it a lot, and lots of it. So he had these daggers that he had given me that they were beautiful in design, and they're, you know, long curved daggers. And he just talked a lot about knives, had a knife and gun collection, and was quite proud of it. And at some point, I don't really remember exactly when it was, but at some point I picked up what I thought was a really beautiful turquoise handled knife. And I had it engraved with a saying that Johnny would say to me all the time, which I, you know, thought was romantic, as funny as that is to say now.
And what was the expression, the saying?
Until death, hasta la muerte in Spanish.
Now, by the time that you're visiting Mr. Depp during his shooting of Lone Ranger in the June through August 2012 timeframe, what, if any, relationship has he developed with your family?
Oh, well, starting really early on,
What is that, a fortnight
Johnny
drink?
was
The fuck is that?
so kind, so generous to my family, but especially my mom and dad.
Is
He just
lean?
really, he met my dad, and my dad's a big personality. He's a rowdy guy, and Johnny just all of a sudden, I had never noticed, you know, Johnny have a southern. All of a sudden, Johnny had this southern accent and was really like buddies with him, and they really seemed to get along
That's
very
nice.
well. They're, you know, just like instantly he was giving my dad gifts. He gave him guns. He gave him knives. They had this, I mean, Johnny just really just showered my dad. And my dad's a working man, you know, salt of
Damn.
the earth guy. And he was just like, you know, floored. He's getting all these amazing gifts and being invited to come on to these locations. And, you know, Johnny's this big movie star. And my dad was just like, you
What the
know,
fuck?
I think
Yeah.
my dad would have married himself, not if I hadn't. And he just instantly, He gave my mom jewelry, brought her out to come and
Man.
see me while I was visiting Johnny.
Man,
On
this guy
Lone
sounds
Ranger
awful.
in some part of the Southwest. I think it was Colorado.
Damn.
Gave her this beautiful turquoise necklace, and I mean,
This guy's a dick.
yeah, they were
Wow.
definitely taken by him.
And what, if any, relationship had Mr. Depp forged with Whitney by this time, your sister?
Johnny
I
just
believe
said
the
I would have.
relationship came
The
a little
lawyer?
bit later as they got to know each other, but he did the same thing with my sister and just really found a bond with them that, you know, was it was, you know, he tried to do anything and everything he could to make them feel like special, and they did. You know, my mom, my dad, and my sister.
And what,
Nice
if any,
guy.
relationships did Mr. Depp form with your friends?
Well, Johnny's so generous and can be this really, like, overly generous almost, you know, like showering you with gifts and compliments and just, I mean, like,
This guy's off, man. I hate this guy.
you know, and he has access and means to really, you know, we're not talking about giving you a
guy
card.
sucks,
like talking
man.
about just these like extravagant trips or these extravagant
Jesus.
gestures. And
Fuck
it's-
this guy, man.
It's a lot, and he did that with my close friends. I relied heavily on my friends, and had a pretty strong support network with them. And he really just showered them with generosity and love and light, and invited them to come to these exotic places. And
He was nice to
flew
your friends.
people here and there. I mean, he's incredibly generous.
So going back to the filming of The Lone Ranger, what, if anything, did
Wow.
Mr. Depp do with respect
What a monster.
to a horse?
Objection leading.
What, if anything?
Overruled. Johnny at one point insisted on buying me a horse, and I, of course, said that's extravagant. There's no way I could accept that. That's how will I take care of that horse? You know, it just it's
Seems
so
like a lot of
extravagant.
work.
So I said no, of course. Eventually, he got a hold of my dad and
Oh my God.
worked it out with my dad, like what kind of horse to buy, and then showed me a picture of this horse and said, "It's yours. It's coming here." I think it was being transported, and he said, you know, that he had my dad's help on it, picking out. And you know, I grew up on my dad's horses. You know, I grew up riding with my dad, so you know, I had resisted for I think about like a month and a half or something of him kind of bringing up the idea and me saying, "That's a crazy gift. No, thank you. No, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept." To all of a sudden I had a cult.
So,
This guy sucks.
so let's take you through 2012
God damn.
and your relationship. Could you just describe for the jury a little bit
Wow.
about how that relationship evolved through 2012?
It was always intense. It didn't become intense. It almost started that way. When I was with him, you know, I felt that electricity in my body. I felt like butterflies. I couldn't,
Okay.
you know, I couldn't see straight practically. It was just, you know, I was head over heels in love, and he felt like that to me. He felt like he was also in love. I didn't feel like he was faking it. I felt like what we had, it felt like to me at the time there wasn't any love like that, you know? I mean, and then he started to kind of do this thing again where he'd disappear and he'd come back. And I remember at first when he first started drinking, I didn't really think much of it, but all of a sudden the behavior kind of started to go in line with the disappearing, and he'd come back and he'd just be different. And I'd say something, and he'd accuse me of saying something else or saying it in a different way, or he would, it was mostly my clothing at the time and me working. That was the main thing. Like, I found myself trying to not talk about auditions because it would change the mood so dramatically. I tried to, you know, he would make these comments about, you know, whoring myself out, but do so in the context of me acting, you know, and he would talk about other actresses who do my role in this way where they were worthless whores, that they were, you know, fame hungry, you know, expletive, you know.
Damn.
The point is, it felt really dirty.
God
To be
damn.
an actor. Never mind that he was one. It was dirty that I wanted to do this job that I wanted to do, and I was doing the job of an actress. It was every time I was walking out of the house, he would ask me, "That's really what you're wearing, kid?" "Oh, I see." You know, I wore a dress to an event once, and I felt beautiful in it. Like, stupid as that sounds, I felt pretty in this dress I picked out, and I showed it him because you know, it's a carpet, it's red carpet, so it's like, you know, publicized, and I kind of thought it was weird he wasn't saying anything about it. You know, I left him to go do this red carpet.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Did you see the you know, the event I went to?" You know, basically, I felt pretty, and I thought, like, "Did you see that?" You know, I
Wow.
wanted him to say something about that, I guess. And he said, well, this is after he stopped talking to me for some time, didn't tell me why. When he came back in my life, he wouldn't explain why he was acting different. He just kind of acted mad at me, didn't know what I had done wrong.
Okay.
And when I brought up the dress and the event, because it was an event to support a charity I was really involved with at the time, and
Funny how those things turn out.
I said, you know, "Did you see that thing?" And he said, yeah, I think the whole world saw that, kid. That's how they'll remember you. That's how the world will remember you. And I was like, oh, come on. I mean, it's like, but it, you know, I felt good in it. I felt good. And he said, "Yeah, kid, that's what you're putting out there in the world. No one will ever forget that, and that's all they'll see you as. That's what you wanted. That's what you were going for. You know, my dress was low cut. I get it, it's low cut. But I felt, you know, I felt really embarrassed and horrible that I wore that. I felt like, how could I have made that choice? Of course, you know, he's right. You know, you start to believe it. I started to believe that made a lot of sense, of course. But it didn't stop with that. It was clothing in general. And when I walked out of the house, it wasn't just like, "Hey, you're not allowed to wear that." It was like, "Oh, really? That's what you're wearing. No wonder you get cast in those roles. No wonder you that's what you are. That's what you're making it." And it you know, it continued. And then there would be a blow up. And at first it was just to throw something, smash some things.
Who did that?
He loves to smash up a place, an apartment, furniture. That's what it started with. Glass. Threw glass at me, and
Yeah.
I remember it was summer. And he just threw this glass across the kitchen, and it didn't hit me, but it shattered behind me, and I remember thinking that it, like, very easily could have hit me. And that, calling me a whore, it didn't start with using the whore word, it was just comments, until it would escalate. And then I started to notice the pattern of escalation where he'd throw glass or turn over a table. Then he
Yeah.
would hit the wall, and then he'd hit the wall really close to my head. You know, like when I'm standing there, you know, just hit the wall, screaming at me. But then he would disappear and get clean and sober, and he'd come back and tell me that he was done drinking, he was over it. It's done, cleaned himself up. He had done it before, and he'd do it again. And then he would go back to this, like, wonderful, like, almost like just unreal, like but real, but unbelievably nice, sensitive, kind, warm, generous, interesting, funny man that I loved. And he would make me feel so loved, like I would feel so distant from that thing that was so scary that I would not even recognize it too. And that was how, our relationship kind of started to develop in that first year.
Do you remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about it.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
It was it's seemingly so stupid, so insignificant. I will never forget it. It changed my life. I was sitting on the couch, and we were talking. We were having a normal conversation, just there was no fighting, no argument, nothing. And he was drinking, and I didn't realize at the time, but I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar of cocaine out on the table. I realize that sounds weird, but it was like an actual
entire jar. Oh my God.
But I didn't see him use it at the time, so I didn't really factor that in. I just, he's drinking and we're talking, and there's music playing, and he's smoking cigarettes, and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And to me, it just looked like black marks. I didn't know what it said. It just looked like muddled, faded tattoo that was hard to read.
Okay.
And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all. And I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, this must be a joke. This must be a joke. Because I didn't know what was going on. I just stared at him, kind of laughing still, thinking that he was going to start laughing too to tell me it was a joke. But he didn't. He said, "You think it's so funny? You think it's funny, bitch. You think you're a funny bitch." And he slapped me again. Like, it was clear it wasn't a joke anymore.
Okay.
And I stopped laughing, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what to do. You would think you would have a response, but I, as a woman, had never been hit like that.
Yeah, it catches you by surprise.
And I'm sitting next to the man
Assuming
I love.
it happened.
He slapped me for no reason, it seemed like, and I missed the point. It was that stupid. Second slap, I know he's not kidding, but I don't know what else to say or do. So I just stared at him. I didn't say anything. I didn't react. I didn't move or freak out or defend myself or say, "What are you doing? You're crazy." I just stared at him because I didn't know what else to do. And he slaps me one more time. Hard. I lose my balance. At this point, we're sitting next to each other on the edge of the couch, or I was on the edge of the couch. And I'm all of a sudden realizing that the worst thing has just happened to me that could possibly happen to you. I realized that I wish so much he had said he was joking. Because it didn't hurt. It didn't physically hurt me. I was just sitting there on this carpet, looking at the dirty carpet, wondering how I wound up on this carpet and why I never noticed that the carpet was so filthy before, and I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. I just sat there thinking, how much time do I have to figure out what I need to do? Because, God, did he just hit me? no, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to have the man I was in love with. I know you don't come back from that. You know, I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone. You can't just hit somebody because I knew it was wrong, and I knew that I had to leave him. And that's what broke my heart, because I didn't want to leave him. I thought if I got up out of that room, I'd leave the best thing that ever happened to me. And I wish I could sit here and say I stood up and I walked out of that house and I drew a line and I stood up for myself.
But you shit in his bed.
That's
not what-
looking at the
I don't know, man.
dirty carpet, trying to will myself to get up
Because she had already hit her previous
To walk out.
previous partner.
at the door because I knew I needed
You
to.
know, she'd already hit her
And
previous
I
partner.
really slowly, I stood up and I remember looking at him in the eye and just looking at him, frankly, because I didn't know what else to do. And before I know it, he starts crying. And, you know, like I had never seen an adult man cry. I didn't even really see my dad cry at my grandma's funeral. You know, it's weird. And he's crying. Tears, just falling out of his eyes. He gets down on his knees and he grabs my hands and he's touching my hands and he's saying to me, I will never do that again. I'm so sorry, baby. I put the fucker away. I thought I killed it and it's done. I thought I put the monster away and I've done it before. It's done. But on his knees. And I didn't have words. I didn't know what to say. I just remember thinking that it was just, he was crying. He seemed so sorry, but I knew I couldn't just forgive him because right? That means it will happen again, no? You know, like I've seen the health class videos, like everyone else. And I got up in my car. I walked to the car. I didn't say anything. I made a point to not say, oh, it's okay or anything like that. I just didn't say anything.
Okay.
I got up, I went to the car, I sat in my car, and I felt like I sat there forever. I didn't want to turn the key. I just leaned my head up against the window, and I remember just seeing my breath on the windshield, you know, on the glass of the window of the door, just seeing my breath and trying to will myself to have the strength to know what I should do in this moment, because I was heartbroken. And I sat there for a long time, and I eventually turned the key and drove home.
And what did you do after that?
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember what I did when I got home. I don't remember. I went to my therapist. I told her
Objection, hearsay.
I'll sustain it as to what she may have told her.
I went home, and a few days later, started getting, I actually don't know how many days later, but I started getting calls and texts from Johnny, apologizing profusely. just, he said, I'd rather cut my hand off than ever lay it on you or lay it upon you, and he had that way of talking. It felt like poetry. And he showed up to talk, like with the understanding that, he understood I could never forgive him and it was done. So I felt kind of safe in saying, okay, let's have a talk, or, yeah, we'll talk.
Okay.
I think I know I just wanted to see
Where's
him. And
the
he comes
text
over,
messages?
he brings me gifts. He brought me
no, they're not there.
a couple cases, actually, of that Vega Sicilia wine that we've heard about. Which is a really nice, expensive wine that I could never, at that time, dream of affording, And we talk, and he tells me that he had put this thing away, that I could trust him, that it would never happen again. Of course, it would never happen again. That he had put this thing away. He had killed the fucker, is what he said to me over and over again. I put that fucker away. I killed that monster. I'll kill it again. It's done. I'll never lay a hand on you again. And I wanted to believe him, so I chose to.
Okay.
Stay in the relationship?
And then what?
Yeah, I did. I believed it, but I believed it wouldn't. I believed that there was a line he wouldn't cross again, and that was it.
I took a piss. Fuck.
And so you stayed, correct?
I'll be right back.
You stayed
I'll be
in
right
your
back.
relationship?
Yes.
Okay. So, is this a good time? You're on a
You
break.
keep going a little longer, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So could you please describe for the jury the evolution of your relationship after that time with Johnny?
I don't know how long it was until things got bad again. He did start drinking again. I remember it was almost, he'd start drinking again, the disappearing thing, the coming back. He'd come back like in the middle of the night to my house. And it would be unclear to me, drunk, often really drunk, and kind of accusing me, but not directly. Nothing was very direct. It was a lot of accusations, but they were veiled. What I was wearing, who I was with, why didn't I text him back? If I didn't text him back right away, this is when I was at my place in Orange.
Okay, sorry.
Sometimes he would show up to catch me. Like that was a pretext for coming over. And by the time we were done talking, I would have thought I had convinced him that I loved him, that I only loved him, there was no one else, and then that we were back in an upswing and would go back to good, loving,
Wash your
like
hands. No.
sick, romantic
No.
love, like kind, sweet, velvety love. And then it would be something I said, why did you say it that way? If I had to leave for an audition, I could guarantee that when couldn't guarantee, but 2 of those in a row, and when I came back, he was angry at me, and I wouldn't necessarily know why. And then he started accusing me of things, probably, like, at first it was indirect, and then it became really direct.
Okay.
Then the punching of the walls next to my head, which is a constant at that time in 2012 when he was drinking. Eventually that became him accusing me of cheating. I'd defend myself. I'd say, that's crazy. You're wrong. I would never. The normal things. And it would escalate to the point where he would push me or shove me down, and then I'd get back up. And this happened several times. That's why it's not more specific, I suppose.
She did cheat? I don't know.
When I'd get back up, I'd look him in the eye. I made a point of getting up and looking him in the eye. It's my way of defending myself at that time. And I'd look at him, and he'd ask me if I wanted to go again, and shove me back down. Eventually, he just hit me. Remember, he hit me in the face when I denied having an affair with my ex-wife, my ex-partner at the time. And he said he had proof. I denied it. And I was walking out of the bedroom, slapped me across the face. I turned to look at him. And I said, Johnny, you hit me. You just hit me.
I'm going to ask you, Michelle, can you bring up 1783, please?
Okay.
What number again, please?
I'm sorry,
What number?
defendants 1783?
1783. Thank you.
Do you recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell us what it is?
It's a picture of my face with a note that Johnny left for me by the coffee. Typically is where we'd leave notes like that.
And does this accurately depict the scene portrayed?
It was one of those scenes. As embarrassing as it sounds now, I don't know which scene this came from. There was a lot. It escalated quickly, fast, and it became.
Amber, let me ask it a different way.
Thank
you. Is this a picture of you? Is it an accurate picture of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of 1783.
Your Honor, we have an objection. May we approach?
Sure.
Yeah, the thing is with this is like it's hard to even know like what really happened, like what's true and what's not. You know what I mean? Because like the thing is with Johnny Depp, so as far as I know, Johnny Depp didn't really have any other history of like violent behavior, etc., right? And so it's like, why would I naturally believe Amber Heard, who had a long history of violent behavior towards multiple people, with also on top of that, no evidence of any of this violence, no pictures, no recording, no type of like actual like medical examination showing that this is what had happened to her afterwards. We have other text messages shown in the court case, but not the text messages where Johnny is admitting to this. Why is that not in here? This seems to be very uncertain. You know what I mean? And it's like no proof whatsoever. And it's not even that there's no proof. It's that the other things are contradictory.
Will you please describe for the
see what I'm saying?
jury some of the cycles you had with Mr. Depp through 2012?
So, in 2012, the violence was pretty,
Take pictures of you fight? No.
relative to what it became, pretty, slapping, backhanding. Well, it went from this eggshell kind of, you're walking on eggshells, nothing you're doing is kind of right, but you don't know what you're doing wrong.
Okay.
And then I was doing something wrong clearly, but it was unclear within the scope of an argument what I was defending myself against. So it would shift from a rumor he had heard that I was with a friend, or I had been photographed standing too close to a male person. That was a person I had had something with, and I was lying to him about, and it would be eggshells, accusations, and then he would explode. It started with throwing things, destroying the property, and screaming at me. I remember the screaming at me was the worst, because I kind of always felt like I had done, I had to defend myself. I had to tell him so he didn't think these things were true. And sometimes, he would shift accusations while I'm trying to dispel one accusation. He'd start another one, and nothing I could do to calm him down. It seemed like I'd walk away, and that would make it worse. I remember in my apartment in Orange, he would grab me by the hair, or he'd grab me by the arm, pull me into him, scream at me that way. He'd smash things around me. Then he would smash things very close to me. And then he would just hit me. And it started with slapping, and it got to be like repetitive slaps where he'd hold me in a position and slap me multiple times in a row. Then it would be, eventually I later would either push him off of me, or I'd try to hit his hands away from me. I'd try to, not in 2012 so much. At that time, I was mostly, my defense was, I'd go some other place. Like, I don't know how to describe that. It was, I'd focus on something else. I'd stand up, look at him.
There's nothing.
Try to stand up to him that way. Later, I adopted other kind of strategies to deal with it, but at the time in 2012, it was he'd have this blowout, and then he would leave, disappear, and I'd be committed to not talking to him. I'm done with this relationship. I can't take it anymore. I said that so many times. And then he'd come back, clean and sober, telling me either he had a chip. He didn't have any chips, but he would say, I've gone to meetings. I have a
That's why you don't
sober
drink,
companion
boys.
now. I'm
Don't
doing this
fucking
program.
drink.
I'm reading this. I'm doing this. And he was done
That's
with
why you
drugs
don't
and
do
alcohol
it.
for good this time. And he'd come back in my life.
'Cause she had the same
and
problems,
with the
too.
combination of him
She's
being
never
sober and having gone through this horrible thing where I felt like my heart ripped out of my chest, you know, like a relationship ending is hard, I think, for anyone, but ending under that circumstance is really painful. And so when he'd come back, it would almost feel like a solution to that. And it would feel great.
Okay.
And we would be good again. And he'd be extra nice and extra apologetic and extra loving. And it would just, and we'd be back in the good bubble, the warm glow. And eventually it'd get bored, and then I'd see him drinking again. When I started to get upset, noticing the pattern of the violence going with the drinking and drugs, then he started sneaking it. So it became less clear, and I'd have to look for clues as to what he was on. So I just knew how to react, you know. Johnny on speed is very different from Johnny on opiates. Johnny on opiates very different from Adderall and cocaine Johnny, which is very different from Quaaludes Johnny. But I had to get good at paying attention to the different versions of him. 2012, I was in the beginning stages of this, just learning these patterns. I was just learning that drinking kind of correlated with the violence.
And did you confide in anyone about these issues you were having? I think she can
Objection,
say
hearsay?
I think she can say if she told anybody.
As long as she doesn't say what she said.
Right, right.
All right.
So did you tell anyone?
Yes, I did.
Who did you tell?
I told my therapist. I eventually told my mom.
And let's go ahead and take a look at Defendant's Exhibit 150. 150.
Her therapist? No, this was another therapist. It was a separate one.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I just, man, Quaaludes don't exist anymore. I mean, I'm sure, like, they still have some of them, right? Like, I remember, like, the whole thing. I remember reading about that, whatever it was. But, like, anyway, so, it's like, every time that I see this, it's very hard for me to believe something without evidence, which there really isn't any. Like, for example, like, I had a friend of mine, and his girlfriend fucking hit him and bit him. Like, straight up. The first thing that I did whenever I was there is I took a picture of that shit, just in case. Just in case, because you never know. Like, that's the first thing I did. It was not Jeff. It was actually another friend that I had. Yeah, just in case. And like, that's, you know, and sure, yeah, and like, this kind of shit happens, and like, you never know what it's going to be. And it's never had to be an issue, but, you know, you never know. And so this had happened before. And also, it's like, it's very hard to trust somebody who has a history that's documented beyond, like, before and after Johnny Depp of violence. And then you are assuming, like, basically you're telling a story. It's like there's like one plot on the graph. It's like one data point. It's like her saying that he was abusive, whereas nobody else said this. It was only her. Whereas on the other hand, there was video evidence of her being abusive to at least two people, right? With like her ex-wife and her sister. You see what I'm saying? So like, how am I, like, it's very hard to believe that whenever all the evidence points the exact opposite. Because I feel bad, like, just, like, not believing what somebody says. But at the same time, it's just, I mean, how can you possibly believe that whenever literally every bit of information implies the opposite? You see what I'm saying? And like, you know, and then also like she had taken videos before. Like she had always taken these videos. Why are there no pictures, for example, of her face after, you know, if he had hit her and bruises and things like this? We don't really have any of this evidence. Meanwhile, with Johnny Depp, we do. Because she clearly had her phone with her. She clearly had the agency to record. But there's no video evidence. You see what I mean? It's just, that is like, I don't know, guys. Like, what do you think? Like, it just seems very convenient. You already, what was this here? It feels like she's reversing the role and telling us what she did. I don't know about that. She has no proof, man. Yeah, but like what I'm saying is like, they both fucked up dumb shit to each other. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Like, I'm sure Johnny, like, it seems like Johnny, like, I'll talk about that whenever I finish, but like, yeah.
Why did you decide to confide in your mother about the issues you were having with Mr. Depp?
Wait for evidence, maybe? Yeah, we'll wait and see.
I think I felt safe talking to my mom because I knew that she understood these dynamics and she wouldn't judge me for staying with him, for loving him, even though this was happening and was happening to me. I knew she would understand.
And when approximately did you start confiding in your mom about your issues with Mr. Depp and the physical abuse?
Objection, hearsay, compound.
I sustain as to compound.
When did you start confiding in your mother about the abuse you were suffering at the hands of Mr. Depp?
I was confiding in her from the very beginning about the abuse, the psychological abuse, the kind of control, the disappearing, the not knowing where he was, then he'd come back and sometimes in the middle of the night, the constant accusations, like that sort of thing. I talked to her about probably from the very beginning. The fact that I was secret, I had to hide. I couldn't tell any of my friends that I was with him for a long time because he told me everyone would blame me for the split with him and his partner. So I had to kind of sneak around and kind of get brought to his house, typically in a secretive way. And then he'd come to mine in a secretive way. And it was just all very, so very isolating. And I confided with her at the very beginning on that sort of thing, and then later opened up to her about some of the violence. I did it gently. First I just wanted to have someone to talk to about how scary it was. The rage and the uncontrolled violence, the rage that this man had, and why it was
Objection,
pointed
Your
at
Honor.
me.
Hearsay. May we approach, please?
Okay.
Jesus. All right. Yeah. None of this is abuse. Well, the thing is, like, if it's very hard to say. And then she married him in 2015. I mean, bro, it's just like, this is nuts, man. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. And like, the thing is, you can't get the mom's testimony because her mom passed away. And so now we have no way really to prove or get any information about this. And the information
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our 15-minute afternoon break. So please do not talk about the case. We're doing the outside research. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Okay, there. All right, now I get to talk about it. All right, let's go. Give me a second. Let's go back over this way. Yep, now we're going to get to talk about it. Is your mom? Yeah, we smoked this fire. All right, give me a second. I'll mute this and just actually lower the volume. So here's really what's so weird about this, right? Is that let me read a few comments. All right, reactions confirmed that she was on point on some stuff. Yeah, I don't know about his reaction confirming that, what she said is true. I think that's a little bit too much. I think people like her lie so much she actually believes what she's saying. Got a girlfriend like this?
Thank you.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think that she believes what she's saying, too. I don't think that she is And I think that makes sense, right? Is like, it seems very obvious that if even half of the crazy stuff that she did is true, it seems fairly clear that there's something wrong with her. You know what I mean? Like, there's obviously something wrong with her. So it would make sense. And made up her own reality, definitely. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think all of it's a lie. She's definitely leaving out of her entire involvement. Seems like a very toxic, drunk relationship. Yeah, because, like, it's also very hard to say, like, what's accurate or not. Her mom's a very convenient scapegoat. Well, I think also, like, besides her mom being a convenient scapegoat, I don't really know if that's the case. But the problem is that all of the, like, if her mom was able to understand it and all of that, and her mom clearly was sympathetic towards her, because if her mom wasn't sympathetic towards her, I don't think that she would be continuing to talk to her about that. Like, logically, that would make sense. That, like, oh, well, I'm not going to continue talking to my mom about this. She doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah. Because, like, so that wouldn't happen. And to Johnny, yeah, it's her mom. So it would make sense that she would want to talk to her mom because her mom was willing to, like, hear what she had to say, understood it. And the implication behind that would be that, you know, her mom had her side, right? I mean, like, that would kind of make sense. It's her mom. She's continuing to talk to her. It would not make sense that she would continue to talk with somebody who would take the side of her abuser. It just doesn't make any sense, right? And so then you go forward and you find out that her mom was sympathetic towards Johnny in text messages that were verifiable. So, like, this isn't like a conversation that happened that nobody has proof of. It's that their mom was sympathetic towards Johnny. So, like, how does this make sense? How is it that you talk to your mother about the situation because you thought that she would understand, which, to be fair, I think that's plausible because, you know, they grew up in an abusive household. I don't know what the details are. I don't really think that we have to know. But, like, let's say she would understand it. So I think that by her continuing to talk to her mom, that would at least be, in my mind, some sort of indication that her mom was sympathetic towards how that she felt, because that's probably why she continued to talk with her. So then on top of that, all of the evidence shows that her mom is on Johnny's side, and this is the evidence that exists. And so, like, you're going with, like, there's like one side where it's like her with like a very emotional story, and then the other side with like evidence and like text message and voice logs and everything like that. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very hard to know what's going on. She's lying. Why would she tell Johnny, you're a man, no one will believe you otherwise? I don't know. And that's, again, what I'm saying is that it's like it's very hard for me to believe anything of what she's saying, because everything that's documented reflects the opposite. You see what I'm saying? And like, I do believe that she had the presence of mind to document the abuse, because there were multiple instances of her documenting the abuse with like the videos, with my multiple videos, the audio recordings, etc. So it's you see what I'm saying? Like, so it's very clear that she was going to document this. Johnny's being under influence. Everyone has big impact on the bias of the case. At least I'm swayed a bit. I don't know. To lie about abuse unless she did something wrong as well. Amber's story is also believable. Sounds very common in domestic abuse cases. Yeah, it's definitely common, and that's what I'm saying, right? It's like, I'm not saying that like this is guaranteed that she's lying about everything. I don't know. But like, what I am saying is that, like, number one, this is going to be from her perspective. So obviously it's, you know, that she's not going to mention all the bad things that she did. And the same with Johnny's not going to mention all the bad things that he did. Like, that's just kind of common sense. But anyway, so what I find to be interesting about this is the fact that all of the evidence indicates the exact opposite. Like, every bit of observable evidence, every bit of conversations that we are aware of, every single thing indicates the opposite. No, trial's not over. They're just taking a break for a few minutes. She gave an impression that it was his happening all the time, but she had nothing to show for it. Well, exactly, right? And that's kind of what I'm saying. And then it's also about her with like the bloody nose, and it was like about it was like lipstick or something like that on the thing. Amber told psychiatrists in her childhood she'd get hit and abused by her father, caused childhood drama, and now in Amber's testimony she contradicts herself. I don't know about that. And like, I'm not sure. It depends. In my opinion, the moment she's trying to fish for Simpson jury, everyone knows people generally feel sorry for vulnerable women. I don't think that's necessarily it. I think that you guys, one thing that a lot of people might not really be ready for, and I hope you never have to be ready for this, is having a girlfriend that says stuff like this and she really believes it, whether or not it's true. Like, there are girls out there that legitimately fucking believe that they feel this way and they tell themselves this for a long time and then it becomes true. I don't know if this is what's happening in this case, but the evidence certainly indicates that. And that's what's really, really confusing. And like, she legit looked like a scenario. She needs to address the poo before her story has any weight. Well, it's not just like the shitting in his bed. There's like a million other things that are also besides shitting in the bed. I don't think that she was trying to document ongoing abuse, rather document baited abuse. I believe that she wanted to have leverage in the case. He denounced her or tried to leave her entirely. Yeah, but he did. And that's what I'm saying, right? It's like, so like this abuse was ongoing for a long period of time. And the only documented abuse was the abuse against him. Even though she had documented, so like like logically this, right? So let's say you have like 10 recordings of fights between you and your husband, and let's say you're her, and like this, you have 10 recordings. Which of the recordings are you going to submit to the judge or to the court that will be indicative of the person's guilt? Well, it's going to be the worst ones, right? Because you're not gonna give them one that makes them look good. You're not gonna give them one. Yeah, you're getting all of them. No, but you're not gonna give all of them. Like, the odds are that she probably recorded. Like, what do you think the odds are that during these conversations that they had, that she recorded, that she had conversations and she was not able to bait out something that was incriminating, and then she deleted the video afterwards? I think that's very likely. Because it's common sense, right? It's common fucking sense. This is probably what would happen. And so absolutely, yeah, this is what I think that anybody would do. So the evidence was removed and then it was used later on. And so she's not technically destroying evidence because it was not considered evidence at that time. She was just removing the ones that, obviously were not incriminating. So by the nature of these things being submitted to the court, I am assuming that these are the worst instances of things that were recorded. Because if they were not, then I think that the worst instances would be used instead.